I'm too hungover to remember what the program says, to be honest. But Chris will be up here in just a second. Just a reminder that say hi and give some love to our vendors and sponsors outside. You can buy DVDs of all the talks yesterday and all the talks today from our good friend Todd. Todd, raise your hand, right in the center here. Enjoy your day. Breakfast in the back. Have fun.
And if you walk, you need to take the pack with you. Okay. So, he'll cue me, or just he'll cue me when he's ready, or just go for it?
If you can't hear yourself on this, not talking into the mic.
That totally makes sense.
Say hello.
Hello. What's up, bitches? Oh, it just broke. What the fuck? Fucking no script? There we go.
Start talking, I'll shut up.
What's up, bitches? How's it going? You guys don't look very hungover in the front. You look like you're pretty solid. You're so messed up. You're so messed up. So, hello guys. Today we start my wonderful talk entitled "Improving Social Engineering Campaigns with Narrative Construction." It sounds kind of funky, but it's useful. So that's why I'm here, and hopefully that's why you're here, right? So, people love social engineering. There's a hell of a lot of things that you can call social engineering. I mean, there's these guys on the internet that like call up and get free pizza, or like they find somebody's phone number and call them at home. It's bullshit. It's just like stupid little kid pranks, whatever. Who cares? Then there's like real social engineering. People who are professionals, like some of you, who are paid to test things. Or you might have a situation if you're, any kind of job, maybe in your real life, where you have something you need to do, something you need to get, or a problem you need to resolve, that you kind of want to put pressure on people. You want to do it by talking and working with people, and not necessarily, being a dumbass walking around with a baseball bat. The latter type of social engineering actually matters. It's when things matter, when it is important that you succeed, you need to do everything that you can to make sure you don't screw up. If you're trying to just scam a free pizza, who cares if you screw up? It doesn't matter, right? It's when it affects your life or your job that you have to make sure that you know what you're doing. You have to make sure you're going to succeed. Probably who've got like super crazy charisma is planning. Right? If you take, for example, if you need to social engineer, and you've got a target you're working on, there are a lot of things you can do to just jump in and go for it. But without really understanding the target ahead of time, how do you know what approach to take? Is this person, are they very meek, are they mild, or are they a bold personality? Are they very compliant, or are they defiant? You don't know. You've got to figure it out. Are you going to go and talk to somebody and pretend you're, maybe you're an underling, you're somebody else who could potentially, pay them back later? Do you go with that approach, or do you go with the approach where you're an authority figure and you want them to step in line? Different people in different situations are going to react differently. And if you want to be successful, you have to understand and predict how they're going to react and take that into account in your planning. You really have to understand the person to understand which approach is going to work best. Now, we as human beings are the product of many cultures that have existed over the centuries. and millennia, if you want to go that far. Um, Something that we've always done as human beings is pass down knowledge through stories. There are little fairy tales you're told as a child that are meant to teach a lesson or meant to scare you. When we read a news article, it's the story of what happened. We are trained to listen, to read, process, and understand the stories, to connect with the people and the situation in them, to understand what's going on. It's just something that over the course of human evolution, we've been tailored for. So if you are going to try and understand somebody, if you're going to try and do that, why not exploit what evolution has done for you? We are culturally built to understand people through stories, so take that. Naturally, it's what we do, run with it, and take the shortcut to understanding. This is the only slide I'm actually going to read. Our goal is to exploit our social animal brains' natural abilities and tendencies to better understand and manipulate our target in order to further our goals. I'm only reading this one because it's very important. This is the gist of everything. There are all kinds of social engineering techniques and things you can do that have certain success rates, but if you really want to be successful, you've got to understand. If you want to understand, this is a quick, easy, and very understandable way to do this. Wow, this is fun up here. What's up? How's it going? So, in order to do this, we have three basic steps if you're going to build the story of somebody to understand them. When you're putting together the narrative of your target, you want to seek information that is specific or helps you build the story, helps you build the narrative of that person so you can understand them. You need to infer what you must in order to help guide your further research. And then we've got to go back and nuance that. We've got to try and get in your target's head and understand who they are, where they're coming from, and also, very importantly, you need to nuance your cover ID. If you are social engineering somebody, chances are you're not showing them your driver's license and telling them exactly who you are, and you're trying to con them, right? You're trying to play a little game. So you want to kind of nuance your performances and bring a little subtlety, a little believability to your cover. So very, very important. We're going to go through these three areas, and then toward the end we have a couple of example scenarios that we'll talk about real quick, and we'll see how that can actually be applied. So first section, seeking information. So if you are going to socially engineer somebody, you probably want to at least know something about them. I mean, you can like cold call some employee at a company randomly. That's not really what this is about. This is about preparation and planning the situation ahead of time. So we want to learn everything we can about our person so that when we do work with them, we're going to have a much better chance of success. Certain information is going to help construct the narrative of that person's situation better than others. So if you're going and you've got the basic vital information, name, phone number, address, title, that's all great. You definitely need to get it. But certain other things will give you hints about the person and what's going to work on them. They're really about little bonus bits of information that kind of flesh out other areas along the sides. You're going right after a person. This is what you want, but you need to understand their situation. So you definitely want to kind of understand where they are to figure out the approach. You want awareness of the person. You want context. You want depth, so that you can, when you try and figure them out, you actually have information to do that. A name, an address, and phone number is not going to do that for you. So what you should hit, first of all, are of course the vital information. Very basic stuff. Probably the single most important thing are dates for anything. When you have dates associated with a piece of information or an event or an activity, you can kind of see where somebody might be coming from. You can, knowing that somebody lived in Pennsylvania, not that helpful. Knowing they lived in Pennsylvania 3 years ago and then moved to Los Angeles, very helpful. It gives you a lot of context about what's going on. You can look at other things, other events that are happening, and try and string together the sequence of events, decision processes. Number one thing you want to go for. Locations are also very important. People's home, work, vacation, combining the dates and locations together will give you kind of a timeline of the person's recent history, their situations, and it's if you're building a narrative, it's kind of like really necessary. So the very important things, most important are dates. After that, once you have the basic timeline, are what I'll say are life indicators. Something that gives you some kind of indication about this person's quality of life, what things are like for them. There are neutral life indicators, which are just generic. They don't really tell you much on their own, but they can still be helpful. This could be if you find somebody who has a new relationship. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Did they come off of a horrible breakup, or did they meet somebody wonderful? You don't really know, but it's still useful information to grab. New jobs, new locations, all the same thing. Did someone get promoted because they're really working hard, they finally got the recognition that they deserved, and now they're happy in their life? Or did they have kind of a cush job and get pushed into something that they don't really want to do? You can't really infer too much with that information by itself, but it's very useful to grab. There are also negative life indicators. Probably the biggest negative life indicators are frequent neutral indicators. If someone gets promoted after a couple years on the job, that's great. If you see they've had 3 or 4 jobs in 2 years, something's probably wrong. It's entirely possible that they were doing great and people kept throwing money at them and they kept moving companies. It's possible, but it's not really likely. Chances are they're either looking for something that they can't find, or they weren't really happy with their job, maybe they got fired, laid off. So frequent neutral indicators tend to be a negative. There are also other things that you can possibly infer if you see someone that's had children at a young age. So mid-20s, late 20s, no big deal. If you see someone with a kid and you kind of do some math and maybe they had the kid at 17 or 18, that happens a lot. Things can be cool, but chances are that put a lot of stress in their life. That was possibly a negative. Then, of course, there are the positive indicators, which are a lot more fun, right? Vacations are usually a solid positive indicator. People don't tend to go on vacations when things are really crappy. If you can't afford it, if you can't get time off work, maybe you don't take a vacation. So vacation's a big thing you want to look for. Certain purchases, luxury goods, expensive items are also a very good indicator that people's lives are going well. These days, an iPhone doesn't mean very much, but if someone bought, a new Honda Civic, okay, bought a car, it's whatever. If they bought a new Lexus, well, they're probably doing pretty well. So that kind of gives you a hint of what's going on and how you can come out this person. Children at a reasonable age, reasonable is sliding, often a very, very positive indicator. Those of us who don't have children and don't want them kind of can find that very hard to believe, but parents will tell you their kids are wonderful, they're so happy, they're a wonderful part of your life. So when you see someone solid with kids, reasonable age, it speaks well. So once you have this type of information, you've got to, chances are you don't have everything. You need to kind of fill in the gaps, get a little bit more things going. You're going to have to infer. So there's really two parts to inference in any social engineering campaign. The first is, of course, understanding the target, and that's the big one. So when you're trying to understand somebody, statistics are very tempting, but they're minimally useful. They tell you things about the average person in a certain sample. You don't know that the person you're dealing with is average. You don't want to run the risk of using all kinds of statistics to infer a bunch of things and then be wrong. The point is to get it right. So be careful of statistics. They're very good, however, for guiding research. So if you are looking into somebody and you're checking up on them, you've got some information about their living situation, who's in the household with them, statistics can actually give you a good hint. So if you have 3 adults in a household, and you know that in the location they're in, say Monrovia, tends to have about 57 or so % of the households have an elderly family member as well. So when you have 3 people, it means nothing. 3 people with a relatively high probability that one of them is one of the adults' mother or father. You can't just jump and make that guess, but it can help you guide your research. If you suspect that might be the case, maybe this is someone's grandmother or grandfather, you can then go and look for information that sheds some light on that situation. Statistics are great for trying to see where you might want to continue your research. That's really the biggest way you should be using research statistics anyway, when researching a target. They can be useful for when you have to pull oh shit gambles, when all your cards on the table, you're losing, you're on the way down, and you want to pull something out of your hat. It can be helpful. If you know that, and again in Monrovia, it's something like 70% of the households have a child in the household that is in elementary or middle school. So if you don't want to come at somebody with that, but if you're already on the way down, if they're already seeing through you, maybe you pull this up. Maybe you think the other name you couldn't get is a kid. It's kind of a last-ditch effort. Don't use it unless you have to. The other very important thing for inferring is, of course, your cover ID. If your cover identity is good, you're going to have a lot better time. Statistics for that are actually very, very useful. I couldn't find it. I looked very hard. I'm sorry, but there was what's up? There was a experiment done years ago about on human brains. The human brain is a pattern recognition engine. That's what it's built for. The study years and years ago had a bunch of participants and a very complex pattern. They would show the participants the pattern over and over again and ask them to predict the next item in the sequence. Over time, the participants started predicting the next pattern, the next item in the sequence more often than random statistics would allow. They were actually getting better and predicting what was going to happen. But none of them could explain the pattern. None of them could know what it is. We naturally just kind of see patterns and pull them out, whether we realize it or not. So at that point, providing somebody with something they'll expect can be very helpful. If they keep seeing certain patterns in their lives with people they meet, you can play to that. You can set yourself up for them to go and infer things about you that aren't necessarily true. Statistics are very, very useful for that, because if you, I don't have that here. Because you don't really know what any one given person encounters in their day-to-day life. But if you find a big enough sample size, you find some stats, you can make a reasonable guess as to what they might have encountered and just kind of fit that mold. When people think they figured you out, they'll just kind of run with, they'll run with who they think you are internally. You don't have to work that hard. You go and you start fitting certain patterns, and they keep going. If I say I've got a friend named Tyrone, who do you guys think Tyrone is? If you look around this room, it's not these two, right? This could be Tyrone, right? It doesn't fit. Go with something that's going to fit, and it's a little bit more believable. Really the point is to make very believable characters for your cover ID. So if I'm not very well built here, but if I tried to pull a cover ID and said I was a bodybuilder, not really believable, not going to work. So if you want to sell it, you've got to fit people's expectations. Like this guy, Tyrone here. Tyrone just came up with, yeah.
You can lift, bro?
I do lift. I lift beers. So when you're looking for statistics, either to guide your research or to create a cover ID, there are a couple of very useful places to get data. The U.S. Census Bureau's American Fact Finder is kind of cool. You know that census thing that they do every once in a while that you ignore? It's all that data. It'll tell you things about the average American household, and it's useful. There are also other sites that do breakdowns, write-ups. There are articles out there that can give you a shortcut to that data if you don't want to look through it. What I find is very, very useful is an article OkCupid did a while ago. Real stuff white people like. Especially if your cover ID is a white person, you can be really believable really quickly. You can really ingratiate yourself. Look it up. It's pretty cool. It's on the internet somewhere. I have a link, but I can click on it.
Chris is actually posing with a white person as we speak.
Yes.
Do you have any examples of things that white people like? I'm quite curious now.
Read the article. Mayonnaise is on there. I don't think you really need to ask what white people like. I mean, you should just know. You should just know.
Judging me?
You're whiter than me, so that's all that really counts. Oh. So if I say someone's name is Smith, the last name Smith, Joan, Browns, Davis, what do you think about that person? What kind of person are they? Are they background? Are they a black person? Are they a white person? Are they Chinese? Third generation? You could be. Those are the most common family names, some of the most common family names in the United States. Relatively well distributed between black and white people. Yeah, so the statistics aren't going to tell you that much there. However, if you are building a cover, it's a pretty safe name. You can go yourself, you can send somebody else, and chances are it's fine. What if someone's name is last name is Lee, Kim, Patel, Jen? I might not pass for a Patel, maybe, probably not a Kim. It's fine. Check out the information. It really helps in selling things. So just for some quick information, so you can see how these stats are actually useful, rather than me just telling you that they are. In Monrovia, we are 59.9% white, 11.2% Asian, and 6.8% black. So if you want to be very common, if you want to have a very good cover ID, maybe you don't want to be a black guy. There aren't that many of them around here. If you're talking to someone, if you're calling from a call center in Texas, no big deal. If you are calling from the kid's school, Well, there aren't that many black people in the neighborhood. Chances are there aren't that many black people that work in the school. If you pick a historically black name like, well, we all share names with white people, don't worry about it. It's a little rougher. Now, they're with 11.2% Asian, chances are there's somebody at the school that's Asian. You can pick an appropriate name, everything fits, it's cool. Of males in Monrovia, 50.8% are married, 7.3% are divorced, and 1.7% are separated. So again, when you're working your cover or you're trying to figure out how to continue research, chances are somebody is, if they're male, they're not separated. You don't pretend you're a divorce lawyer. It's not going to work. With 50.8% married, you have a slightly better than 50-50 chance that you can talk about someone's wife. I know your wife from work, so forth. You can find a way in there. To me, 50-50 odds are pretty crappy. I mean, way better than a lot of things in Vegas, but not great. The numbers are a little bit different for females. 45.2% are married, 11.6% divorced, and 2.8% separated. So if you call and you talk to a lady, you have a worse than 50-50 chance that she's married, and you can say, I know your husband from work. So maybe that's not something you want to pursue if you're researching a target. If less than half of the women are married and you're researching a female, you probably don't want to put that much time up front looking for the husband. If you see there's an indicator there's a husband there, go for it, but it's not something you should assume or pursue right off the bat. Let's see, 22.1% of households in the area have at least one member that's 85 or older. So very low chance that you can call up and say, I am grandma's doctor. But if you see 3 adults in a household, one of them seems to be older, 2 are in their 30s to 40s, chances are the third person is one of the married people's parents. At that point, it's not a great number, but the statistics can show that you should probably pursue that and see if that person is in fact an 85-year-old or older person in the household that you can use as an angle. So there's plenty of sources out there. Grab the numbers, be careful with them. Of course, once we have data, once we have that data, we need to, we should probably get a little bit more. There are several ways to grab more data that you can make inferences based on. Covert reconnaissance is a pretty nice one. However, any of you guys work for the CIA? Anybody? No, you do? Wow, so you're really good at it. But the rest of you probably should not walk around with a trench coat and a pair of dark sunglasses and pretend you're all like elite, spy shit. It's not going to work. Don't go to jail. If you try the whole covert reconnaissance thing, you'll probably be spotted. It's great for getting information, but if you're in my talk, you probably are going to fail. So keep that in mind. Very, very useful sources of information for inferring are company phone directories, email signatures, voicemail greetings. This is especially the case when you're dealing with an organization that primarily sells or has a sales department. Everyone wants to get the sale, so if they don't answer, chances are they've got an agreement with another sales agent, with a buddy. Just from an automatic email reply or voicemail greeting, you can probably get people's managers' names, other people in the department, titles. Very, very, very quick and easy way if you can hit that. You can call people or email. I don't know, maybe Memorial Day weekend, 3-day weekend, people are gone, like today. Call up a company, get the phone tree, start walking it, look for the department listings, and you can grab a lot of information about the company structure in general and possibly the employee that you're looking for. You can also dox. Yeah, I'm not going to really talk about that. You can go out and you can research, and there's like 8,000 things, lulls, how to dox. It's all stupid. Don't worry about it.
I'm not sure. I don't know that acronym.
Okay. We have Wi-Fi here. We have free Wi-Fi if you want to hop on, Google a little bit.
Okay.
You can. So, we all, every single one of us, even this guy who tries to hide who he is, even though I totally know his name, we all have tons of information about us out there. All kind of weird black helicopter Illuminati, databases of everybody. There's tons of information about everybody. Doxing is just getting it. If you are law enforcement or government, it's really, really easy. You pay LexisNexis like a couple of bucks, and you have, what someone pooped out last week. They have crazy, crazy information. If not, you have to do it the hard way. There's social engineering, there's social networking. I believe there was a talk yesterday, Dark Arts of Open Source Intelligence. You might want to check that video. They might have mentioned that. I don't know. I was having 3 people build this badge for me, so I missed it. But check it out. Side topic. Okay. So one thing that really, really have to be careful of when you're doing the whole statistics and then inferring and then statistics and inferring is what I call pooping back and forth. The data that you have probably has gaps in it. So then you go and you try and infer something about the person to fill in the gaps. You kind of look at that information, you nuance it a little bit, you think you found out something about the person. You go back to step 1. The data has gaps, you infer some more, and you're building all this information about somebody based on a bunch of assumptions that might not be correct. So don't do it. Remember to keep the whole statistic thing to building believable cover IDs and guiding your research. Don't think you're some kind of wonderful savant and you can like tell someone's blood type from their Facebook posts, unless you're Japanese, in which case that's totally legit. So you've got you've sought your information that was important. You made some inferences about your target. You tried to pull a little bit more information. Then you need to take all that data and nuance, either nuancing your performance as for your cover ID, or trying to really, this is the stage where you get in the head of your target and try and understand them and trying to figure them out. When you're looking to nuance for a target, you want to feel their feels. You want to get in there. You want to get a good feeling about the person and who they are and where they're coming from, to try and understand them so that you can figure out the best way to approach them. And for covers, it's really just about being realistic and being convincing and meeting expectations. So this quote is actually from it's from a book on acting. It's really if you're social engineering and you're running a cover, you're totally acting. It's totally acting. I just love the quote. I mean, living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. That is exactly what you're going to be doing. You want to be believable. You want people to think everything's the truth, and it can be. But the whole pretense is what's up to change. No matter what you are doing, if you're not having believable, truthful responses and interactions, you're not going to sell it. Some of us are super charismatic and we can just walk up to somebody and we can get like the driver's license and bank account numbers. When I was born, I rolled a 4 on charisma. So I can't do that. So I have to prep. That's how it works. So, now that I've mentioned that, I would like to explain to you Chris's theory of universal human predictability. When you're nuancing, if you want to understand what anybody's going to do, how they're going to react in any given situation. You can predict things fairly accurately if you know three things. That is their motivation, their intelligence, and their awareness of the situation. Motivation is kind of obvious. What do they want? Needs are not necessarily wants. That's something you need to keep in mind. Someone might want something, they might need something, but they also might not want to let you know that they need or want it. So you got to see where they're coming from, what their goals are. They're not always obvious, but if you can understand their goals, that's the first step. Next, of course, is intelligence. Are you dealing with a complete idiot? Are you dealing with a super genius? Really affects their decision-making processes. I know, it's shocking. Are they smart? Are they intelligent? Can they figure out how to get what they want on their own? Can they figure out how to get you to give them what they want? Very important, do they think they are smart enough to manipulate you to further their own goals? Then, of course, is awareness. Really, there is no reality but perception. What does the target believe the situation they are in is all about? What do they see? What do they think? How do they see the field if you're playing a game? So those three things, if you understand them, can make predicting very easy. But there's some problems. It's nearly impossible to really have a thorough understanding of all those three things. They're very helpful, but you're probably not going to accurately get all three. And it doesn't really account for crazy. There is no accounting for crazy. You just can't do it. So it helps you get the ball rolling. It helps you to understand certain things. But maybe looking at some possibilities, but don't think you can completely understand and predict everybody 100% of the time. It's not going to happen. But it's really, really useful for testing your angle out. If you can look at your target, if you're going to build a scenario, you're going to make them aware of certain things. You can kind of try and look at those three items and figure out how they might react. You can test and you can play out scenarios and figure out maybe I should do this, maybe I shouldn't do this. What kind of tweaking should I do? It's great for potentially finding a soft spot to destabilize someone. Especially when people think they're smart enough to manipulate you. It's actually really good for telegraphing your intent. And I don't mean your actual intent, your implied intent. So these slides are just placeholders. I mean, oh, okay. It's purple. It's purple. Well, when I started the slide, I said this is Chris's theory of universal human predictability, which is what it says right there. If someone thinks they're smart enough to predict and manipulate you, you can use that to your advantage by giving them your cover, motivation, intelligence, and awareness. They might think they can predict what you're going to do. You can set them up to think they are manipulating you and ultimately doing what you want. Sounds kind of weird.
This is a whole lot of game.
It might. So if you are at work and your boss wants you to work late and doesn't want to be the bad boss, doesn't want to say, hey, you should work late, they might try and trick you into working late. Well, you have no choice with your job. You might not understand this one. They might not come out and say, I want you to work late, but they might, well, you've been doing well here. If you put in a little extra effort, you might be up for a promotion. They're going to try and set a stage to get you to make the decision they want. And that's really what the telegraphing is about. You want to give people that perceived perceived knowledge of your motivation, intelligence, and awareness to get them to try and set up a situation for them. It works really well on salespeople because that's kind of what they do. It's their job. So once you think you can predict somebody, you've got to you really should start playing things out. See how the scenarios might work. It's all acting. Acting. So effective memory is a acting technique. It's my next point that I was going to mention. That's what it is. Effective memory involves recalling similar or related events to something in order to trigger emotional response in yourself. When you go and you watch a movie and there's someone on screen crying, there's a reasonable chance that someone like a PA splashed water on their face and they pretended they're crying. There's also a chance they're remembering horrible things from their childhood to make them cry on camera to be a more believable character. That's really what it's about. It's helping to sell. You, as a human being, might be able to fake the whole range of human emotional responses. Or you could just do it. You could just make it happen, and because it's relatively truthful, it's a bit more believable. The idea is just trigger real but controlled emotion. Because you're recalling something hopefully that you've dealt with, you can focus on it, trigger an emotional response in yourself, happy or sad, whatever you want to do. But because it's something, hopefully in your past that you've worked through, if it's bad, you can then turn it off when you need to and get back to doing what you need to do. Another very important thing, especially understanding targets, is their self-image. You might be able to think you can predict somebody, but you need to be kind of conscious of how they see themselves. It really goes back to motivation. Do they see themselves as an internet white knight? Are they a cutthroat shark if they're a sales guy? Do they want to be the unsung hero in any given situation? Trying to understand how they see and want to present themselves really goes a long way to understanding their motivation and ultimately predicting response. Role play can be super fun times. Super fun times. You wouldn't know about role play, some fun times. You'll find out. You'll find out when you're older. Morpheus knows more about it than you. We're running through a role play and acting things out as your target and as your cover. You can get kind of a deeper connection and an emotional attachment to the characters in your story to try and feel what they're going to do. Role playing with somebody else and having them play the other side it makes it a lot easier. You want to kind of imagine how they're going to feel in the situation. You're going to walk through it, understand where they're going to come from, and when you flip something, if you're first working the target and then you become your target during a role play, you can kind of see things from a different angle, and you might come across things that you didn't think about before. So walk through the scenarios, act them out with different variations, see what's going to happen. You can start writing a little, possibility tree of how things are going to possibly go, so you can plan for what's likely to happen. And for your covers, it's really just being real and being convincing. It's all about being realistic and predicting and super convincing. So that's our goal. Again. At this point, any questions, comments, cool stuff? Yes.
Are you sure what your stories to sort of walk through the process of how you did your research and then inferring everything on?
I will totally do that on the next slide. I wanted to stop if there's any questions at this point, because I only have 10 minutes left. I wanted to make sure. No? All right, great. So, I've told you all this wonderful stuff, right? We should probably put it to use. We can't completely do that because I'm on a podium right now and there are legal issues. But we can walk through some example scenarios I hit. So, first example scenario. Say you've got somebody you need to deal with, little neighborhood punk kid who's causing trouble for you. Every neighborhood has that one kid down the street that everybody hates. It's totally the butcher of Seal Beach over there in that neighborhood. Where'd Rob go? Damn. So this is back, social engineering in real life, right? It's a kid. You probably don't want to bust down the kid's door with a shotgun and threaten him. You'll probably go to jail. So how do you deal with them?
Not if you're a minor.
Not if you're a minor. That's the other thing. I used to send the butcher of Seal Beach to do my work for me, but then he turned 18.
Yeah.
So,
You can shotgun on another person if you're underage.
We'll talk about that later. So if you want to deal with this kid, threatening him might not be the best way to go about it. We'll use social engineering to solve our problem for us. So you look at this kid, you're trying to figure out information about him. You find out he's male, because I said he, so he's male. 16 years old, attends a local high school, lives in an apartment. That's just basic information that you might find when you are trying to grab info on somebody. Maybe you're doxing them. What do you do from that? You want to get more information that helps to place indicators on their life, dates, times, positive life indicators, negative. You want to infer where you should continue your research. So let's say you did that. You find out a little bit about this guy. You find out that he likes to hang out and smoke pot with his friends a couple doors down from his mom's place. You do some covert reconnaissance, which I don't recommend, and you see only a single car over at the house. A little bit more digging, some doxing. Mom's 45, and you see that mom has had 3 residences recently in a relatively small area over the past couple of years. So how do you put pressure on this kid and solve your problem? I am open to suggestions right now. Anybody, this guy.
At a different school and try to pull the drug thing from the school.
Really?
Yeah.
He wants to go and he wants to go to pretend you're from a different school and do a drug thing. Is that what you?
Trying to get the kid to be possibly expelled from the school, which would cause them all to move their dad.
Really? Uh-huh. Yo.
Bang his mom.
You could bang his mom. You could. So my very detailed research has found that mom is a 38D. So, yeah. So this guy thinks that we should try and use the drug thing against the kid and threaten to get him expelled. So you have to try and put yourself in the kid's shoes. If he's hanging out a couple doors down, smoking pot with his friends on a regular basis and is a neighborhood troublemaker, even at like 16, you've got some kind of awareness of that not being right. He's probably not going to care, especially if it's a public school.
I think CBX plan sounds better.
Way better. I would, yeah. So, refocus your efforts, research, infer, figure out what you want to target. You pull up more information, you might find out that mom recently got promoted. She's in the hospitality industry. Mom was very quiet. Yes. Mom was very quiet on the internet, and all of a sudden, tons of social networking activity. Recently tagged pictures on Facebook with herself, her son, her daughter, and another guy that just suddenly showed up like a year ago. All of a sudden, one big picture. Started taking vacations. Went to Vegas recently. New Year's trips, Christmas trips. So now, you found a little bit more, and you can kind of put together the story of the kid's life. Mom bouncing around different residences. There's no dad. Dad's not around. She moves around a couple small apartments. She works hard. She gets a promotion at work. The kids at home, not supervised very much, probably develop into a little troublemaker. But if you don't see dad around for a while, mom's probably a bigger thing in his life. So put yourself in the kid's shoes. Now, how do you come at him? Now that I've told you some more information, how do you want to come at this kid?
You feel the fact that he's feeling neglected and doesn't feel like he's got.
That is actually a totally legit way to go about it. That's not what I did. She said, trying to say it again?
Appeal to the fact that he's
Yes.
feeling neglected.
Appeal to the fact that the kid's feeling neglected. Maybe trying to give him a little attention. The only problem with that is you don't really know the kid, and if you want to be like bigger brother, you can totally go to like a YMCA and do that. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be a nice way of doing it, but you could also blackmail the kid's mom through him. Say, hey, I'm watching, I see your mom is doing something her new job would like, and unless you do what I want, I'm gonna shit on your party.
So yeah, he says blackmail the mom, threaten her. You got information on the kid. I would not be that overt, but that's essentially what I did. This actually happened, by the way. So, all kinds of problems. Mom's running around crazy. She's moving. Multiple residences. Mom got a new boyfriend. She finally got promoted. Things are finally going right for mom. Hey, mom, your life's finally on track. Your kid's going to screw it up. Wrangle him in. You don't go after the kid, you go after mom, and mom goes after the kid. Just getting a little bit of information, getting in their heads, can give you a very effective approach. Or just, bang his mom. So if anybody wants to talk more later, that's cool. That's going to conclude my talk for now. Hopefully you guys are here for the rest of the day. Enjoy some good stuff. And thank you. Thank you. I thought this was going to be like a 30-minute talk, and then I'd be up here like herp derp for like a half an hour. I was a little too slow because of this heckler here. What's the next talk, Data Graham? That's pretty exciting. I did. That's what my favorite movie. What's your still be? I perfectly balanced it. Sort of.